Will it take you a lot longer and be a harder road? Absolutely. Plugging into mentorship is that cheat code. It's those shortcuts. It takes a certain type of person. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone. You have to have true grit. You just do. And that's okay. I mean, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I believe we are definitely cut from a different cloth. Some people, my friends, are like, you are a maniac. And I'm like, I am, and I love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Courtney, thank you for joining us today on the Life Edge podcast. If you wouldn't mind taking a brief moment explaining a little bit about yourself and what it is that you offer.
Yes, absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm excited to chat with you. So my name is Courtney Kimble. I am a business coach and a mentor. I also, a little bit more formally, wear a consulting hat. And what I do is help women build six-figure plus coaching business in the online space by mastering fundamentals of business building. And, my philosophy is simplicity in business, because I believe that there is always an easier way to make more money.
That's great. So for those of us that are new to your brand, why don't you take us back a little bit further? How did you get started into what you're doing right now? How did you enter the consulting world?
Yeah, it was a long path to getting here. So I have a very wide background as far as education and experience goes. And it's funny how everything's just sort of culminated to be the perfect, just where I am is exactly where I was meant to be. And you don't quite see that as you're moving through it, but hindsight is 2020. So I have my degree in psychology, and I throughout university, because I took a longer path. I was at JC for 5 years, and then I was at a Cal State University for 2. And during that time, I actually worked for a gentleman selling annuities. Very different from what I do now. As far as just like from a marketing standpoint, I mean, I was in the trenches of cold calling, handwriting letters, running meetings, in-person meetings. Is just like a completely different context, completely different experience. And I loved it. It felt like I was helping. And some people feel a little bit, some sort of way, I'll say, about annuities. And I always had to say, this isn't your grandfather's promise to pay, as it was post World War I. But it truly was a way to be able to create security in people's lives. And I found a love for sales during that. And so I did that for about 10 years. And I actually still do that in some capacity, much more remotely now, especially because COVID shifted all of that. And I actually did all of that with my stepfather. So that's a whole other story. So it's really a family business. But throughout that, I found this love for sales and selling. And I was also working in, the restaurant industry, doing a lot of, I did bartending, waiting tables, but just like, I'm a people person. I love connecting. I love talking, joke, like I could talk to a fence post. And so, once I graduated, I worked for the state. I did a little bit of left turn, worked for the state doing community service, social service work. And it just unfortunately didn't pay. It was like, I live in California, cost of living is astronomical. And I was really torn because, I was very passionate about this work, but those who work in social services know it's difficult. It's a really hard job. And if we don't have, the end of the day, you're struggling to pay your bills. It's really hard to justify the emotional toll it takes. And then, that other side of it. So I started a network marketing company and I was sick of the whole grassroots marketing. I like to say, the 3-way calls and the coffee dates. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. This was back in 2017. And I was like, I have this audience on Instagram. Why don't I just share it this way? And so I started doing that. And as I was immersing myself in this entrepreneurial world, I saw a lot of women just not doing it right. Like they just weren't seeing results. And so I thought, you know what? I would rather help them build successful businesses on my terms. And so I started my consulting business. That's a very long and short story of my history.
And so with your consulting business, you come up, kind of break that down. You come alongside them a little bit, and then what happens? What are the women getting from the services you offer?
Absolutely. So I have a diverse product suite. I have a number of different ways for women to work with me because being accessible is really important to me. And so I have courses that are, you just buy a course, passive, do it at your own pace. I also have a live group programs, which my flagship program right now, Foundations from Flailing to Five Figures, which is for beginning online entrepreneurs, is open for enrollment currently, but that's a hybrid, and that's course and live support. So I find that especially for beginners, there's a lot of information out there. I believe you could probably build a business successfully on your own with the amount of content at everybody's fingertips, but will it take you a lot longer and be a harder road? Absolutely. Plugging into mentorship is that cheat code. It's those shortcuts. And so I'm able to be accessible in a sense of, you get FaceTime with me in those programs. It's in a group setting. And then I also have higher level mentorship for individuals who've got fundamentals down in business building and are really looking to leverage and scale in the online space as far as their social media presence, their product suites in general, and just also their capacity to coach and to mentor their own clients. So coaching coaches, which I think sometimes is overlooked in the sense of, you could have great programs, but are you just educating, or are you actually nurturing and mentoring true leaders and business owners? Because being a content creator or being a coach is different than being CEO minded and very, growth minded in a sense of changing and shifting the entire paradigm in the way that we do things now.
What would you say is one of your success stories that you're really proud of?
I have so many. I think that, let's see, this is a great question. And I know you asked me before, and I should have had one ready to go. Yeah, let's talk about Gabby. So Gabby is an incredible woman. She is a mother of two now, and she started she was in human resources in a 9-to-5, and she started a VA business to pad her income a little bit. And her husband and daughter, they were doing the remote, the sort of location independent living and traveling and just wanted that freedom, right? The laptop lifestyle. And so she started VA business, was very successful in it, but found very quickly that she was trading time for money. And that doesn't really lend to this lavish laptop lifestyle in the sense of you're capped for hours, and also you need to be in front of individuals. And so she and I started working together in Foundations, my hybrid group coaching program, and we were able to completely move her VA business into a full-time coaching business. And that happened in a matter of 4 weeks. She was completely booked out with clients. And it was as soon as, and this is something that so many of my clients experience, is as soon as you're able to really identify your niche, the problem that you solve alongside the individual or the, say, sort of archetype ideal client, you can craft messaging that allows you to cut through noise in the online space. I mean, we are inundated with so much content and people just tune out. But once you can really speak to that individual, you find that you have this microphone and people are drawn to you. And she was able to do that because she, mastered her messaging and created I always like to create beta programs just at first. So you remove the pressure, right, on both sides and just get the experience, get the cash in. And she, within, a matter of 4 weeks, completely, she still had her VA business because she was phasing out current clients, but was able to pivot into full-time coaching. And she's now doing incredible things. I almost don't have words for the amount of impact that I see women creating, not only in their own lives, but in others' lives. And it's really a blessing. Like I pinch myself. I can't believe this is what I do.
That's cool. What are some of the commonalities you see in your clients for those, like, what are some of the common hangups that they have? And then with those that succeed, what are some of the common traits that they have that really push them to succeed?
I think the big commonality in the obstacle and the struggle tends to be themselves, honestly. We get in our own way because of, there's self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And as we all grow very publicly, we get to see everybody else's success. And that is dangerous in a sense of you're constantly comparing yourself to where you are and feeling behind. And when you feel behind, you are in your mind constantly playing catch up. And then you get into this almost unhealthy relationship with work because you're working, not feeling satisfying. And then you almost can't celebrate the success that you're seeing. So it's really being able to master that mindset game, but also as you're doing that, because you can struggle with feeling always in comparison and being this imposter, you tend to retreat, you tend to hide. So it's like you get in this place of inaction, and success is truly just failing enough until you get something going. And so it's like they stop before they even get started. And so I would say definitely, it's just themselves getting in their own way, because I'm nothing special, in a sense of, if I can do this, everybody can. I had a lot of disadvantages throughout my life, and the fact that I'm here today with a multiple six-figure business is just proof that anybody can do this. So if that is their biggest challenge and obstacle, I would say what helps women be the most successful is just taking action, knowing that, and having this mentality of not will it work, when will it work? And if it doesn't work, I'll make it work, because you just keep moving,
Yeah. And that was a big mindset shift that we had to come into with the Life Edge as well. You get to a point where you're grinding and grinding, and you're looking at everyone else's success, and you feel, well, I've put in this much work, I should be there by now. But you don't realize there's an 8-year gap between where you're at and where they're at. And it's easy to look at it and see like, oh, they're an overnight success. Because, well, I just didn't know about them 6 months ago. So because they're new to me, that must mean they're an overnight success. And then you have to look like, dig deep in yourself and be the person who's like, it doesn't matter what it takes. This is going to succeed. Whatever it takes, this will eventually succeed. And I will keep grinding and keep doing what I need to until it does. And who cares what everybody else has?
Yes, amen to that. I always say, don't compare your beginning to somebody's middle, because you don't know. We don't know. We only see a sliver of the grind, of the work, of all of the priming and pre-paving that these individuals have done. And it is really easy to say like, oh, it's easy for them. They're doing all this and have all this success. Why am I not there yet? And that is just, it's no way. It's no way. We've got to celebrate ourselves and where we are and be, because I think that that's one thing too that people forget. Like energy is magnetic, and this feeling of if you're feeling lack, and I know that we're looking at somebody through a phone, but that stuff translates, right? Especially if we're talking about the type of content you're sharing. It's like the energy and the tone that you bring to your content. Your content is doing so much of the selling for you. And if you're in this lackful space of constantly feeling behind, that's going to translate. So it's just like, own where you are, be proud of where you are, celebrate it, because there's always going to be somebody who is 3 steps behind you, who is looking to you and is saying like, oh my gosh, I want to be where she is.
Yeah.
Or he
So,
is.
yeah, exactly. So I want to jump back to kind of where we started. There was something you quickly jumped over that I think is a key component to where a lot of people struggle, is you switched from your state job to then running your consulting. How did you make that leap? Because to go from the 9 to 5 to I'm going to support myself, that's a big leap that a lot of people are just terrified to take.
It is scary. It's scary, but I knew I would never really be happy building somebody else's dream. Like, I always knew that I would work for myself in some capacity. And so I am not an overnight success. I was a person who built something quietly over time for a long time before I had fully stepped into my CEO role and position that I'm in now. So I did it alongside my 9 to 5. I did it alongside bartending for about a year and a half. And then I had secured enough, reoccurring revenue to feel comfortable and confident in the fact that I would be okay. And I always knew, and this is something I tell my clients too, like, you're always employable. If it doesn't work, which it will, you can always go and, work somewhere else. So I told myself that I was going to be all in. I didn't want to put myself in a financial position where I needed it to work, because that pressure was too great. I know myself, I don't operate that way. I need security. And so I had gotten to a place where it was slightly uncomfortable. Like, I knew that I needed this to work. Mm-hmm. But at the time I didn't have team members. I wasn't paying, salaries. And so it was okay. I'm not in that position now, which thank God, because I don't know my team now. They're like, how did you get to where you were? Because tech is not my friend. I'm like, I don't know. I got scrappy. But yeah, so it's just something you do over time and build up. I mean, sales are relationships. Relationships don't happen overnight. Start today. Build a client roster today. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clients that you can re-sign. They will be your biggest brand ambassadors, your cheerleaders, referrals. Like, word of mouth marketing is not dead. It's alive and well. You use that. And so I just started small and built and built and built to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm going all in.
And you mentioned in there that something I think too is so important for a lot of people to grasp is when you first start out, your team was asking you, how did you do this? You don't understand tech. And you said, I got scrappy. I became resourceful. And so many people are unwilling to, well, I don't understand this, so I'm just going to not do it. And I'm not going to chase my dreams, when really all it takes is just taking that step, because nobody understood it when they first started. You have to just dive in and really work on taking that step. And some people, I talked to a lot of people on the podcast where that was the thing. They were just scrappy. They just figured it out. And that's hard. I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to understand.
I agree. I think that, well, I know we don't like what we're not good at. And so you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's where all of the growth happens. And if you can remind yourself of areas in which you once quote unquote failed, but now you thrive, I think you can build up this body of evidence that can prove to yourself you can do it. I always use this example with my clients of Imagine when you were learning how to drive. Now you get in the car and it's been an hour and you're like, oh my, how did I get here, right? This is autopilot. But it's the same thing. It's like mastery is just exposure and repetition. So expose yourself, do these things over and over again until they feel easy. And the thing is, the irony is like nobody wants easy, right? I mean, if it was easy, nobody would want it. So it's just putting yourself out there. But I agree, it takes a certain type of person. Entrepreneurship is not for everyone. You have to have true grit. You just do. And that's okay. I mean, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I believe we are definitely cut from a different cloth. Some people, my friends, are like, you are a maniac. And I'm like, I am. And I love it. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
So how does someone then know if they're cut from that cloth? That's something I don't know I've ever thought of, in the sense of how does one determine whether the 9 to 5 is best for them? Because there's nothing wrong with going that route. Like there's plenty of people who have done very well for themselves and provided great lives for their families through that route. But how does one know, like, the grind, everything about entrepreneurship, that's what I want in my life?
I think it's just this intuitive nudge. I wouldn't have it. I think at the end of the day, if you wouldn't have it any other way, you know it's for you. So I've had days that have just completely kicked my ass, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't trade that for something else. And sometimes it just takes doing to know, because we've got to try things on and see how it feels. But you have to, the key there is giving yourself enough time to know. I think that this also is really applicable for different strategies and from, if we're talking about like marketing and selling strategies, you've got to try something enough to know if it works or it doesn't. So giving yourself time. And ironically, when we remove timelines from things, we remove pressure, and everything tends to feel a lot differently, in a sense of like, if you were to do something, say you launched a program and nobody signed up the first 24 hours, would that be a failure if 2 weeks later you're sold out? It's like, it's just this mindset of how long something's going to take. And when you can release those timelines, it's a completely different conversation, but I just felt the need to share. So I think it's really giving yourself enough time to know the difference, and then asking yourself, like, having raw, honest conversations with yourself, and in a sense of like, is this something you really want? Or could you do without it? And I agree, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a 9 to 5 or, having a corporate job. People are very happy. That there is a freedom that people give up as business owners, in a sense of you never clock out. There's not this work-life balance. It's a blend. And for some people, that's not true freedom, So I think that that's something else that's important to acknowledge as well.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much for coming on. As we start to wrap up, there's one question I like to ask all the guests, and that is, what is one lesson that you've learned in life that you want to share with all the listeners?
I would say the thing that scares you the most, don't run from it, run towards it. All of the scary things, the things that I was afraid to do, are all of the things that propelled me forward. And so if something is uncomfortable, instead of retreating, just rush it. So that's what I would say.
That's such a great answer, because it's so true. There's so many times just in growing this business and doing things where it was don't even hesitate, just dive into it, because that's the only way that if I allow that fear to take hold in my mind, I'll never get to it. And so it's such a great answer.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Courtney, thank you for coming on today. For those that are looking to connect with Courtney, I will make sure to put a link below in the show notes to her website, as well as all of her social media. And Courtney, thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's a pleasure.